Okay, Kum Lenin, a blood gemara, where Moed Katan Daf Moed Aleph. As I said to you yesterday, my Shved passed away. They had a massive levaya in Antwerp just now, a few hours ago. And moving on to Yisrael, so we're learning a blood gemara today. Zeichen Nishmasai, David Moshe. Sorry. The Gemara Daf Moed Aleph, and we're talking about Nida. I told you last time that there's a thing called Nochash. We call the curse of the Chachamim Nochash, and Nochash is Nidui, Chedim, and Shamta. And there's a big argument in the Poskim if Shamta, what is Shamta exactly? The Gemara will soon in a few days now will say Shamta, the word Misa is like he's dead. Is Shamta just another term for Nidui, or is there something in between Nidui and Chedim at different degrees of severity? I mean, Shamta comes with a curse, not just that you have to be. Remember, the whole idea of Chayim is that we want you to reform, we want you to true. The purpose is not to leave you in Chayim. And it's only if you remain in Chayim, you don't bother getting out of it, they put you in like a rolling thing, and eventually it ups the ante and they turn it into a Chayim, which is
Didn't we have a whole thing about Rabbi Lezer that they called him Shamuti? And one of the svaras was that he was in Chayim. Because
that's right. Shamuti was either because of Shammai or because he was put in Chedim. But the Chedim there was that he didn't agree with all the other Rabbanim and didn't in any way humble himself to accept what they had to say. And Talmidim actually didn't learn by him for a long time. Even though his son Hyrcanus took care of him, so that's the proof. I told you yesterday, when it comes to a Chedim, does it also exclude children and wife? And we had two opinions in the Poskim. If children, family are considered, are not part of the Chayim, or others say everyone's included in the Chayim. No one can be within his 4 amos and so on, except his wife, because Ishtay Kegufle. It's not like she's an exception, she is him. But let's continue now the laws of Chayim. And what we learned Chayim yesterday was also about a person who's loy tzayis dina, we learned 2 days ago. Somebody who's was given a psak din from a bezin and refuses to listen. So he's put into Chayim. Okay, let's start the 4 lines at the top. We'll learn a number of dinim regarding, first of all, Bez. How do you know the How do you know that you can send a shliach from Bezin to subpoena someone? You don't need to die in himself to go, but you can have a subpoena through a shliach. Let's see what it says. That Moshe Rabbeinu sent someone to call someone does not be bnei Eliyav. So we see that the dayan sends a shliach, and you have to listen to the shliach. And others say that Moshe himself was a shliach; he was acting on behalf of the Eibishter. Others say that Koidach was the shliach, and he was told to remove his adosai, that he was a shliach acting on behalf of Moshe. And how do you know that you subpoena him to a din? That the Chesivit says that you have to tell the guy. What do you call that? You have to point out exactly who you're subpoenaing. As the Chesivit says, Moshe said, "Okay, after you, you have to name all the people, all the defendants, and you say you and your entire community have to come over here." How do you know you have to go? You tell them you're going to in front of a great man or in front of a dayan. So we say Dichsiv because it says in the pasuk that you have to tell the person that you can go in front of this and this dayan. Dichsiv says, I'm summoning you to in front of Hashem. At uplanya, how do you know that you have to also nominate who the plaintiff is? That was not enough just to say you're summoned to a court case. So you have to tell them who the court case is against. See what it says. It says the buzzing. After you, Vehem Aaron, you and Aaron. So Aaron is the plaintiff, and you're the defendants. Why you have to nominate the plaintiff is either so that you can think about it and recollect. Oh, I have to fix something up for the plaintiff. Let me fix it up now before we go to court. Or it gives you an opportunity to prepare your case. Machlek is in the poskim between the Shach and the Be'er whether when you summon someone to Din, do you have to tell them what the case is about? Or can you just say that Yankel is calling you to Din Torah without even bothering to say because he thinks you owe him money or whatever the case may be? The Shach says you have to. The Chida wants to say you bring a raya from the Ritva over here. Others they say you can't contest that. They say you can't bring from the Ritva. There's a big machlekes in halacha. Says more further. How do you know that you have to also give a time, a date as to when exactly the case will be? The Chsiva says, Mocher. He says, I want you to come for tomorrow. So in other words, you gave them a time when you want them. Zimna Bazim, I know they don't come the first time, you give them another time. See what it says, Koru Sham Pare Melech Mitzrayim. They summoned Pare, the king of Mitzrayim. This is the Yirmiyah saying, Shoin Hebed Amay. The time came he was supposed to come, and he never bothered. He was having a party, he didn't come. So they came another time. How do you know the mispake b'shel Medina? How do you know that if you mock the beit, you refuse to attend? How do you know that? And this is more than just refusing to attend. The way Rashi learns is that you mocked him. But also, the Shliach Bezin comes back to us and tells us what happened. How do you know the mischazli should be? How do you know it's not constitute lashon hara? The Chsiv, it said in the pasuk in the Chumash, it says that Dosan Vabirim said when the Shliach went in and said to them, "Come over," and they started saying that not only you didn't bring us a land flowing with honey and milk and so on and so forth, you want to gouge out their eyes, talking about themselves, and we refuse to go. How does Moshe Rabbeinu know that to write in the Torah? So obviously the Shliach came back and told them. I mean, maybe the Ruach HaKodesh. The Ruach HaKodesh said that's what they said. But if it were Ruach HaKodesh, then why bother recording their nasty comments? The only reason why the Torah bothered to record their nasty comment, their refusal to go to Moshe Rabbeinu, is to teach us this very halacha, that the Shliach Bezin has every right to go back to the Dayanim and tell them what happened, and this is to make sure that the authority of the Dayanim are not undermined in any way. And how do you know you place someone in Chedim? Because it says in the level of Shamta, because it says Oyru Morais Barak, and the were asking Morais to come and join them to fight against their enemies, and he refused, and therefore. Because so we see from here that if you don't listen, it says Oyru, they actually cursed him. So we see that somebody refuses to let go, you curse him. The Hachi Sabra, the Gaber Rabba. How do you know that you tell them that? How do you know that you tell them, look, we're putting you in Chedim because of this great person? It says, Oma Malach Hashem. It says that Morez was cursed, says the Malach Hashem. When all on the Machniman, how do you know that from Shamta we go to the next stage, which is Chedim? It says, Oirei Order. It says twice. It says Oirei Morez, the Malach Hashem says, Oirei Order. So we should curse and curse. And then we say, how do you know the ochel v'shasi b'hadei b'kei b'arba ames the day? And how do you know that if you defy our rules, which is you're not allowed to be within his 4 ames, you're not allowed to interact and just at leisure and casual and eat and drink with him? The chsiv yeshveh. So the person not only we're cursing Maras, we're also cursing yeshveh, all of those that are sitting around him. Umenola on the partin and chotei b'tzibura. How do you know that you have to actually highlight the reason why you're putting him in chedim? And the Chsiva says, it's spelled out when the Malach put him in Chedim, it says, you know why we're putting Morah in Chedim? Ki loy bol ez Hashem. They didn't come to assist Barak and the Voda. Amarul says, but Dalamay should put a Shamte, Barak, Lamora, they used 400 shayfers to put him in Chedim. Some say he was a great person, he just didn't want to go to war. Maybe he's a pacifist. And others say, it's not referring to a particular person. It's talking about a star. It's talking about the Malach of Sanchedesh. Never it says, it says from heaven that they fought the stars. So they were fighting a war against these stars. How do you know when you put someone in Chedim, not only do we put him in Chedim, but we can place his assets as Hefker? The Chsiv, it says in the Pasuk that whoever doesn't come within Ezra told everyone to say they're all married to a non-Jewish woman, and he said to them, "I'll give you 3 days to separate from your wives, and whoever doesn't come, and within 3 days, katzasa sodim maskeni, like the advice of the elders, then you should know that everything they own, all their assets, will be in chedim, which means that they'll be separated from the community of the exile." And from here, Rashi says here, but this Gemara Gittin, one of the 2 opinions, is one of the psukim we learn out, that the Hefker, Bezin, Hefker. The Bezin have the authority to take all your products and make it ownless. And how do you know the Natinan, the Latinan, the Machinim, how do you know that we have this, that we go ahead and we're prepared to fight and to curse and to hit, the Talshin and Sia would pull his hair out. How do you know that we actually can use physical harm as well if somebody refuses to listen to Dayanim? So the Gemara Umarbina, we make them swear. The Chsiv says, I will fight with them. We know how do you know the kafsinan? We tied them down. Vasinan, we bound the hands and feet. Vavdinan, hardafa, we do hardafa against them. We'll see what that means. The Chsiv says the pasuk. Says the pasuk, whatever we do, whether we kill them, to completely uproot, to punish them, nichsin and their asset, and we tie them. Means uproot. Amar Adam Mari Amar Nechemia Bamar Amar Chibarab Amar Buda Hardafa. And what is this Hardafa? Menadin la'alta. We chase after them. That means that we put them in chedim. Why? Because Loit Sayis Din refused to listen to the authority of the Dayanim. The Shainin la'achavam b'gayim, and they repeat it again after 30 days if he refuses to relent. Umachrim la'achashish, we put him b'chedim after 60. So for the Gemara, it sounds like after 2 sets of 30 days he refuses to bend, we put him b'chedim. For Rashi had 1, and the Shulchan Aruch actually say 3 times. We give 3 hazmanas before we put someone in chedim. So they have to either have a different giz in the Gemara here, or they learn different pshat. We give them a warning on Monday, then a Thursday on Monday. Tosis and most of Shayim pshat here that it means before we put them in at all, we give them 3 hazmanas. First, 3 times Monday, then the following Thursday, and the following Monday. And then if he doesn't listen, then we start putting these cheramim. Hani little money. This is money commercial dispute. Avalav kurisa, somebody who is the reason why we're putting him a chedim is because he refuses to comply to the bezim, to the rabbanim, to the dayanim, they're out. Then immediately we put him a chedim. You don't play around with that because you don't want people to undermine the authority of the dayanim. Rashi doesn't try it all together. He learns that once you put him in chedim, you do 3 times, and then if he refuses to go out of the chedim, that's when we put him in the more severe kind of chedim. Says further, there was once a sheikh who had a run-in with Rav Tula Bar Masna, who was the Rav, obviously was giving the hechsher in that town. So Abai came along with Shamtu and placed him chedim for not listening to the Rav. So the Rav didn't do it himself; the others stood in his place. The sheikh also Faisal about it, and then he went. His sheikh went, and he went to his Rav, to Rav Tuli, and he asked Mishal. Abai said, "Hey, what should we do?" So it seems that. I was soon seeing the Gemara, the same people put you in chedim according to Abai should be the ones who unravel that chedim. What should we do? Should we just let them go out? Let's go through yet 30 days. And we know that Stam Shamta is 30 days. Shouldn't we allow Kaboy Rabban Mayo? We need him, that he's a sheikh, we need him. So what should we do? Abai turned around to Abai, what did you hear about this matter? Tut is the sound of a shofar. Asas and the sound of a shofar is mat. Even though, in other words, as soon as you decide to let him, let's say he asks the chilek the tshuva, you can release him from his chedim. That's what he said. That's how Rashi learns it. Places in Menach, some of the Shayim say that basically that tat, we have the word tafish, tatrik, afrikish and the tat means number 2. That means Bima says you get 2 judges together, and they the ones who are asa, and they can be matzah straight away. Not because we don't blow a shofar when we do blow shofar when you put someone in chedim. We don't blow shofar, we take them out. Only by money matters. We can maybe stop it before 30 days. We can undo it as soon as he does true. He pays up or whatever. Abaya holds you have to wait 30 days and let it expire. Big Machlek is the poskim when let's say you put someone in chedim for 30 days. The end of 30, you have to say mutter or it's automatic. Because we did learning our Abaya that Bezin makes something another Bezin achal hatira. What about over here? And over there we talked about Moshe Rabbeinu said, prepare yourself for 3 days, and then you have to tell them lech shuva aleichem. But here is this the same thing? Chedim is for 30 days, and then 30 you have to be matrik. Some of the Shayim hold. Others say no. Here lechatchila the chedim was Moshe Rabbeinu said prepare for 33 days, and say and afterwards stop. Here the chedim is saying the whole chedim only lasts for 30 days and then ends. So maybe since you stipulated from the beginning it's only 30 days, there's no point at the end having to be matted again. Bring my place. Alma Kishor by Baiholz. Hanibet was the Shmiti laws, it was still Misharla. The fact that the Bible are the same ones. That they came back to must be that the same Rabbanim who put him in Chedim are the ones that have to release him from Chedim. That's what it seems. The boy who we asked, Hanibet was the Shmiti, we asked the question once. Do we need the same 3 dayanim who put him in Chedim to release him from Chedim, or you can have anybody else? Toshma coming is we want to get the Rav. puts a chedim on somebody, then all the Talmidim have to abide by it. But the Talmud, if the Talmud makes a chedim, and we're going to talk about a case where he disrespected that particular Talmud, so the Talmud, for covered our Torah's sake, put the guy in chedim, the Rav doesn't have to abide by it. Menuda li'iroi, menuda li'lached. He put the chedim in his city, he is menuda to another city as well. But menuda li'lached is ain't a leader, but if he's menuda, if he's put a chedim in the other city, not in his hometown, he's not a menuda in his hometown. So big machlek is how to understand exactly this particular line, menuda li'iroi. And so many of the Shayim we're continuing talking about a Talmud. We're talking about a Talmud. If the Rav put someone in a chedim, then the whole world has to follow it. We're talking about a Talmud who is standing up for the Kavod HaTorah. So then he only has if it's not the city where the person lives, he can only be put in a chedim in that city, nowhere else, but not in his hometown. Or maybe other cities similar, but not in his hometown. That I even want to learn, it depends merely on the size of the town. Only in towns similar to the chedim apply, but not if the towns are larger. Menuda l'nasi l'kol Yisrael. Menuda to a nasi for everybody. L'kol Yisrael menuda nasi, but menuda l'kol Yisrael, nasi does not have to abide by it. What happens if one of the Talmidim put him a chedim, the mess, a number of people got together, put someone a chedim, and then one of the people who put him a chedim died. Chelkoi eina mufer. Even though everyone else can go ahead and release the person a chedim, but the person who died, that Talmud, his share of it, his that it does not come out. So Shmam Lechlaf, in this very din, we learn out three different things. Number one, trying to Talmud Nidu. Every Talmud can play people. Number one. Number two, we're not talking about he did L'Shem Shemayim. He did it because you personally attacked me. This Talmud, the Talmud Chacham, he personally attacked him. And that's why the Rav doesn't have to follow it, because if the Talmud puts on a chedim, but because you did something, a Chil Hashem or something, everyone has to follow it, even the Rav. We're talking about for the cover of the Talmud. That everyone only releases their own share. And also learn out that you can't get someone to replace you, otherwise it's a big deal. So one of the Talmidim died, get another person to come in and step in his place and to release him. So that's agreed. I hold Hani Beit Losa the Shamita, even though you have three people who put a chedim, also Beit Losa Achina Bisharle. You don't need the same three people, you can have three others. Rav Ashi said, but what about Shimon Gamliel? He said, it seems from here that you cannot make hafara unless all the people who were present when they put him in chedim are there present when they release him. What he meant was that Talmud share is not automatically released until someone steps in the shoes. Someone steps in the shoes and does it. So what we learned? We learn that chedim is not less than nidu is not less than 30 days. But ein nezifa pachas mezayim yamin, and nezifa, which means like a rejection, is not less than 7 days. A nezifa, which is not an outright chedim, but if your Rav gives you a look, then you should behave for 7 days as if you're a chedim, because you obviously disrespected him. But a chedim is 30 days. How do I know? It says by Miriam, when she spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu the way she did, is because she accused him of leaving his wife to Torah. If her father was flat in the face, he would embarrass for 7 days. So we see that what in the Zifa, this rejection is 7 days. It says, Nidri Shalonu in our chedim here in Babel is kinezifa shalhen, is like the Nazifa in Eretz Yisrael. When Nazifa did do Shiva, they're Nazifa 7 days. So our nidu is 7 days. The Su Loy says, you tell me that to throw the zifa, a rejection is only 7 days, and you want to say that in Chutzlar it's a nidu, stam nidu is only 7 days. Let me ask a question. I'll tell you a few stories, and I'll show you that in Etzisrael, and the zifa is also 30 days, not 7 days. Rebbe had a son called Reb Shimon, and he had a friend called Bar Kapara, who was a Talmud of Rebbe Yassi. They weren't sitting with guys who lived together. Kash and Lushmaita, they struggled with the Gemara. They found it very difficult. You know what? Let's go. Something like this, we need to ask Rebbe advice on how to understand Pshat in Gemara because we can't figure it out. Bakapar was offended because he felt that they tried everything and just the Gemara is very difficult to understand, and he believed that Rebbe couldn't fathom it either. What more can your father add to this thing? So it says that Rav Shimon once told his father about this conversation, and Rashi says he didn't deliberately tell his father it's Lashon Hara. Stam he was talking that he was trying to tell his father how difficult the sugya was, and he mentioned this thing to show, not to insult his father, but Stam to show how difficult the sugya was. Ikpid, the Rebbe got offended. Also by Kaparis Chalev, Rebbe was sick, as we learned, was sick for a long time, so he went to the Marak Chalev. Rebbe said, I don't want to know you. Yoda did not but realized that he must have affected Rebbe. 30 days he behaved as if he was a chayim. What do you tell me to throw as if for 7 days? Was he 30? Another story. He goes Rebbe Rebbe said, interesting, he doesn't like learning in public. You shouldn't learn in public. My daughter, that how wonderful is your footsteps, that which you hide in your thigh, like treasures, and you work from a craftsman. My Yerech B'Seisa, just like your thigh is discreet. So the Torah, when you teach Torah in public, is you should be discreet. Because it says in the passing, Maisi Yedeuman, the hand, the work of a handiwork of a craftsman, and we know that Torah is from the craftsman, the ultimate craftsman, the Eibush. Rabchi went out and he taught his two nephews in the marketplace. First of all, we had in the Merksuas. Rabchi was unbelievable that he could have raised Chiz and Mason because coming during Maisim and Echia, because they went around all over Israel teaching everybody. But in this particular case, Rabchi defied Rebbe, but Rabchi felt he's only learning with two nephews. In other words, he felt that Rebbe was talking about Rabbi. Rabbi usually means a minion, a large crowd, a multitude of people. He was learning with his two nephews out in the street. And who is two nephews? Rav. He had a great family. One nephew was Rav. We learned more Psachim in the beginning there. His half brother was the father of Rav, and his half sister from the other side was the mother of Rav. And he had another brother called Chana, or Bar Chana, and he taught Rabbah. So either Machlekes and traces there, whether it's Rabbah was a grandson of Chana, or Chana's name was Bar Chana, and Rabbah was a son. Shama Rebbe heard about it, that Rebbe openly defied his instructions, but he was very upset. He was not so much upset, I guess, about the learning, with the fact that Rebbe, a prize student of his, was defying his instructions. Rebbe went to Vakachel Amalei, as the Mashal says, he made fun of him, because remember we learned before Rebbe couldn't say Ches, and we'll see also in the Gemara later, in Shuvah, he couldn't say Ches, so he it's an ayin. So mi koide lecha b'chutz, anybody calling you from outside? In other words, get out of here. Yoda did not kill right? Right, we realized that he's upset with him. He behaved 30 days of Chedim. And Bayan Klas, and the story continues, on the 30th day, Shalachli, Rebbe says the message, he missed up, he wanted it back. Come back. Hada, then a few hours later, Rebbe sent another message, Shalachli, Deloy Lacy. He said, you know what, I changed my mind, don't come today. So why first did he call Rabchi and to come back, and then he changed his mind the same day? This was the 30th day of this Chedim. Because at first he thought part of the day is like the whole day, and therefore the 30th day he can come out of Chedim. Then he thought, you know what? Not when it comes to Chedim. Let him, stay the entire time in his Chedim. The Rabchi came to Rebbe. He didn't get the second message. Why did you come? I sent you a message not to come. You sent me a message in the morning. I should come. So Rebbe said, but then I said your later message not to come. I only heard the first message. Interesting expression of the easy. This shliach I met, and this shliach I didn't meet. Said, everything is locha pratis. I didn't want you to come, but yet I changed my mind, and yet you came, and you never saw the second one. Must be b'tzeis Hashem darchish. The Eibush decides the way, the footsteps of a person, and gam oivav yashlim mita, that even his enemies will make up with him. In other words, the Eibush says locha pratis. The Eibush want you to come. So he said to him, "My time over Marochi. Now I'm going to ask you." So it's interesting. First he put him in Chedim. And now then he asks him, so why did you behave this way? You would think it would be the other way around. Before you put someone in Chedim, you say, explain to me, please, your behavior, and then we'll decide whether it's a defiance or a misunderstanding. He did not, because he was scared, not so much about Achia, he was scared about all the other Talmidim. They're going to see Achia, ignoring his edicts. What chances he had with the other Talmidim? Achia said, the reason why I didn't listen, you could have thought you're contravening a pasuk. The pasuk, Chachma is bachutz terayna. That Chachma out in the street, you should sing with. And Baruchayva in the Kaila in the street, you should give sound to it, noise to it, says Moshe Melech says. So therefore I thought, fantastic, learning outside. Amalei Rebbe said, if you learned it once, you learned twice. You didn't understand Pshat. It means like Rabbi says. Obviously Rebbe didn't know what Rabbi said, but he already knew the Pshat. Anyone who learns Torah discreetly, the Eibishter will tell the world that this guy is a Talmud Chacham. Says the Gemara, but it says in Pasuk that loy meroish b'seisa debarti. I don't want you to speak, hiddenly. Ahibe yom the kala. There are certain days you have to talk in public. This is the day of Yachid Kala. This is like we learned before on the Shabbos of Yom Tov. We gather everybody together. Then obviously it has to be publicized. But otherwise, it should be done in a much more coveted way, edifying way, not stand on the street, but in your place. Says he went further. So that's anyway. So what do we have the story here? The purpose of the whole story is that Nazif is 30 days. What's Abchida saying? Nazif is only 7 days. So he went further. Another story. Sorry, but before we get to that, what does he do? The pasuk that you should be discreet like a thigh. What should be discreet is when you give tzedakah. Matan b'seisa. You chassadim be discreet. Even though the Rashba writes in the Tshuva, the mitzvah, the farsa, mitzvah, that some of the tzedakah you give, you should be publicized, so others can learn. Many people can learn from you and replicate what you're doing. Anyway, bottom line is, Alma, we have two stories there for Reb Shimon and Bar Kapodah, and we have the story here of Chia. Nazifa to do Klas and Yom in 30 days. Says Gemara, that's different. Zifas nosi shiny. Ordinary zifa is 7 days. If a Talmud Chacham, rejects you, it's for 7 days. But over here, it is for 30 days. So the Gemara, when a zifa did not come have an hour zifa chutzlara, if our chedim is 7 days, like they're in a zifa. So what's our zifa like? Says he wanted chad yema only 1 day. Kiyadish mo Marukva gavi Yosri garsi shmaita. They were singing together, learning of Yosri Marukva kamei Shmuel. Marukva was a student of Shmuel. Shmuel was an unbelievable Talmud Chacham. And Marukva used to sit. Berochi dal David. He sat as a student before Rabbi Shmuel. But Marukva was from the house of David. So he was like, he was a very high up authority, and he was the head of the bezin of that city of Nehardoi. And so when it comes to the Torah, Marukva sat up top. He was a dayan. But when it came to learning, Shmuel was on top. Marukva gave him all due respect. But when he sat in the Torah, Shmuel came in Marukva, but Shmuel sat this in the 4 Amos. Marukva was in charge yet. Marukva was so humble that he dug out a place there and placed a mat. And the Yosef, he would sit on the ground, even though he was the Ab Bezin and Shmuel sat 4 Amos away from him. But Marukva sat on the ground, lower than Shmuel. In order to hear what Shmuel had to say, because Shmuel was much greater Talmud Chacham. Kol yom every day, Shmuel every day. Marukva used to follow behind Shmuel and escorted him out of Spiz until where he was staying. One day, he was so involved that didn't and his head was somewhere else. Shmuel Bas say that when the was walking back, he continued thinking he didn't follow Shmuel. In fact, Shmuel followed him. When it came to his house, when it came to Shmuel's house, so instead of Shmuel leading, Shmuel was following. So he said to him, it's not enough that I had to follow you. Could you please release me so I can give me permission so I can go into the house? I guess it was being a bit sarcastic here. He realized then that Shmuel was upset with his behavior. So how long did he behave in the zifas? 1 day. So we've seen the zifa in Babel is 1 day long. And Shmuel was doing enough for his own personal covet, but for the covet of Tate. Hawitz is a woman that had a Yosef B'Shvila. She was sitting on this path that I was walking on. Have a pashta kara. She sometimes stretched out her legs. The kamanifa chashloy, and she was there winnowing, barley seeds. And so she stretched her legs out, and nobody couldn't walk over her. And this rabbi was walking by, but she didn't move a leg away. What a chutzpah, to stretch her legs out and take up the road. Also, she realized she did something wrong. She went to Rav Nachman, who was the head of the bezin. He said to her, did he use the word shamta? No. If that's the case, zili if that's the case, then I want you to go ahead and conduct yourself nazivus for 1 day. Zutra bar Tuvia. So we see again that the zifus and chutz la'aretz is 1 day. Zutra bar Tuvia Zutra bar Tuvia was learning In front of Yehuda, when he came to the following pasuk in Shmuel, when it came to the following pasuk, it says, "Eila divrei David ha'achareinim." These are the last words of David. Malais, he said to Rabbi Yehuda, "Achareinim," the last words. Mikladi Kedushayin. There must have been some words before that. Some divrei. What were they? What is it? Now, Rashi here, Rashi in Tanakh, it's extraordinary. Rashi says that David HaMelech didn't say anything in Nevi'us except where it says divrei. And this is the only pasuk that we have divrei. So you say, Rashi is right here, 4 lines on top. We don't find that he said the word divrei only in this pasuk. The divrei lashon nevuah. Divrei is an expression of the nevuah, and the Rashi in Tanakh spells it even more. And this is the only nevuah he ever said. And others are trying to say the Ritva and others. What's Rashi talking about? The whole Tehillim is nevi'us. Everything David Melech was nevi'us. But just means the word divrei. It says that these are achreinim. Where the divrei is shining that it had to hint somewhere. That's right. So I viewed this quite quiet. Didn't know what to answer. How did why later this Talmud repeated again? What is it? So Rabbi Yehuda felt that the Talmud was like poke fun of him. I chapped you that you don't know the pshat. My diet Rabbi Yehuda got upset. He said, "What do you think? Somebody doesn't know the answer to this pasuk. Lav gavra rabahu." It's beautiful. If you have a Talmud Chacham who doesn't know a pasuk in Chumash or a pasuk in Tanakh, you're going to say what? He's lav gavra rabah. They didn't know the Tanakh that well. As we had, in places there in Babasa, Chachamim lebeki bekroi. They weren't so Chachamim so aware of all the psukim. So just because because he thought that he was trying to allege that Rabbi Yehuda is not a big Talmud Chacham. He was upset. Knowing the Zevus who yada the Nokim was benafshi, he realized that he was upset, took it personal. He behaved in Zippus one day. Said, now we're talking about us and Allah Mia Achrein. It's a good question. So what is the answer? Says the Gemara, the answer is another passage. It says in the previous chapter, he said the song that when B'Yom Hitzel Hashem Oisim Mekapkolim, maybe the same thing from the hand of all of his enemies, Mekapshov, the hand of Shov. So that's the Vaydaber. This is like he sang a song then, and this is the second Vaydaber he sang a song. That's the Achareni, and the first one was the Sheni. So Gemara said, now that we're talking about that passage, the Gemara, I'm like Baruch Hu David Shiratem, what he sing a song that you would say from Shol. You know who Shol was? I'm a Pelosis Shol. Il Mole Ata Shol, who David would be the other way around, that you were Shol. And he was David, Ibadati Kama Dami V'Panav. I would destroy all the Davids before Shol. Shol was an unbelievable tzaddik. When he was appointed the king, it says that his shoulder and higher, he was way ahead above the rest. And this is what it says in Tehillim, Shigoyin with David, and we can translate Shigoyin as he made a mistake. Asher Shol Hashem, that he sang to Hashem. Al divrei Kush ben Yemini, about Kush. Who is Kush? Kush is Shol HaMelech. So we must say, it's saying that he made a mistake singing a song that is the downfall of Shol. So why do we refer to Shol as Kush? Somebody who's dark. It stands out from everybody else. Shol also stood out from everybody else because he was an unbelievable tzaddik. And so what he's singing songs about the downfall of Shol. Shol obviously was a very complicated figure in history, just like David was. We've called him such a big tzaddik, we had a number of times, and in Tanakh itself, Shmuel accused him, you didn't listen to me because you were so humble, and you listened to the people. So, and yet, he was punished the way he was, and had terrible demise. Similarly, regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, Isha Kushis, that Miriam accused him about this Isha of the woman Kushis, did he marry a Kushis? He married Tzipayda. Just like Kushis. Just like Kushis is different in her color. Tzipayda also, Rashi Chumash says, was beautiful. Or that she stood out in her deeds, in her behavior, in her character. It says in the pasuk, and the king of the Kushi heard. And we're talking about the times of the year. Who is the king we're talking about? We're talking about Tzikio. So the Chikush is his name was Tzikio. These were great tzaddikim. Some similar in Tanakh. Haloi kibnei kushim atli. Talk about Klal Yisrael you to me like bnei kushim. Yisrael the base Yisrael the chi kushim shmon malay Yisrael shmon the royin al ma kushim shmon Yisrael mishun ba'olam. Just like kushi stands out, so too they stand out b'chol the nation. Amar Shmuel Banach mentioned as a person whom David ben Yisha said David son Yisha. The Neum Hagever says the person who come let's elevate the oil. What do you mean elevate the oil? The David said David ben Yisha shehekim oil shel tshuva. David HaMelech brought to the spotlight the power of tshuva. After what he did with Uriah Chiti and Bathsheba, and yet the Eibush accepted his tshuva. In fact, the Gemara by the says, and Rashi alerts us to it that David HaMelech, the Gemara says, they didn't really deserve to that deed and do the Maisa, but just like the Egel and the Gemara says over there. But if a person sins, you should know David HaMelech sinned, and yet he was prepared to do tshuva and he asked the same thing the Eibush will forgive you as well. Okay, so it says that in Tanakh, talking about that very same period that David HaMelech was saying in the Viyas. So David HaMelech said a very interesting thing. He said the Eibush said, "Li diber to Yisrael." David HaMelech saying, "What the way is long shate?" The to Yisrael, the Eibush spoke to me. Moishel ba'adam, I control people, but who controls me? So tzaddik, Moishel, a tzaddik controls Yidas Hakim. I come. What's going on here? I control people, but me Moishel be. Hashem says, who can control me? Tzaddik. Who could control me? A tzaddik. I can make all kinds of decrees, and a tzaddik come along and cancel it out. It says in the same period, these are the names of the strong people to David. Mike that the people, the warriors, sat there in a group of wise people. What do you mean? Some say the Gemara said we're talking about David HaMelech himself. Other Mefarshim in the Radak and others in Tanakh say he's talking about somebody, one of his warriors, or even some say it's Yoav. But the Gemara here was talking about David. Shemus Hagiboyim to David, not one of his workers, but talking about these are his attributes and his strengths of David. Yoshev b'Shevet, b'Shosha Yoshev b'Yeshiva. No, but David, the Seder HaMelech was a warrior and he was an unbelievable Talmid Chacham. So when he sat in Yeshiva, it didn't seem like he was on top of the world. He sat like a student on the ground. As long as his Rebbe was present. Ira used to sit on top of the cushions. And remember, we had this before, and we had the Gemara before in Megillah, how they used to be, how they used to learn. Talmidim sat on the ground and whatever, or they used to stand, and so Ira used to sit on his cushions, and everybody sat on the ground. When Ira passed away, David became Rosh Hashiva. David became the David HaMelech, the great warrior, was also Rosh Hashiva, and he taught them. And he sat on the ground on the same level as all the Talmidim. Why sit down there on the mattresses and everything else? He refused to accept this, that when it comes to learning, he was humble. He was wise. Since we're going to say the word Tachkumeni is as if the ches is a hey. Hashem said, since you are so humble, you should be like me. And he goes you can make, I'll make decrees, and you as a tzaddik can come along and overturn it. Reish Hashalishim, that you should be the head of the Shalishim. We know you're a warrior and you're the head of this group. Reish Shlishim is number 3. You should be the head of Shloisha others. And Rashi says that you, interesting, Rashi Reish Leva others, you will lead them into Olam Haba. You will go first, and the Avraham Yaakov will follow David HaMelech. We had also in the Gemara that David HaMelech will be the one who will be benching. I understood the loss is lovely. If that's what it means, that's what to say. But here he says it, that he will lead them to Olam Haba. Then the pasuk says, "Who adino atzmi?" What do you mean that he's adino atzmi? And then it says, and so we're going through the entire pasuk. What's adino atzmi? To show you Yoshev v'oiseh b'Torah with David HaMelech. He used to learn Torah. He would bend himself to last. He was so humble, himself like a worm. But in the next part of the pasuk is 800 people he killed in one go. But when we went to war, he was a macha atzmei ke'etz. He was tough like a piece of wood. So that's what ma'aden atzmi. So sometimes a ma'aden, and then sometimes he was an eitz. When learning, he was an aden. He was like a worm. He used to bend and wriggle the way around. He's very humble. But he came to fight. He was an atzmi. He was an eitz. Stick holz. What about Shmuel made Cholab Machas? He killed 800 in one go. So he used to throw an arrow. Or a spear. He made Cholab Machas. He killed 800 in one go. He was displeased. He used to groan about the fact that there's 200 still missing. See, with the pasuk says in the Torah how good things will be. One person for 1,000, and all that I can do is 800. Yotzabas came out of voice and said, "You know why the 200 missing? That's because of what you did with Uriah Chiti. So therefore, 200 missing. So notice, even though Dormel did Shuvah and everything else, he was continuously punished. And remember, we learned a few days ago that the Tessa over there at the gates of the base of the Mikdash opened up the Schus David. That's when finally everyone realized that the Eibush was Meichel completely. Okay, I think we should stop over here. And we'll continue tomorrow night, a half an hour